Carlos Alcaraz, that tennis prodigy who seems to have been born with a racket in his hand and an unshakable will, has always been one of the sport's most fascinating enigmas. At just 20 years old, he had already accomplished things that most players only dream about while staring at their ceiling at night. His insane determination on the court, mixed with that natural charm that makes people say, "Damn, this guy's got it," quickly turned him into a favorite among both fans and the media. But lately, the buzz around him hasn't been about his insane drop shots or his rocket-speed forehands. No. The rumor mill has been running wild with whispers of a secret relationship with another tennis prodigy, Emma Raducanu. Yeah, that Emma. The golden girl of British tennis, the one who shocked the world by winning the US Open as a teenager. It all kicked off during the off-season when both of them were spotted training at the same super-exclusive tennis facility in the south of France. Now, at first, people brushed it off as just two elite athletes grinding to stay at the top of their game. But then, boom! A certain very interesting picture made its way onto social media. And let me tell you, this wasn't just any photo. This wasn't Carlos and Emma posing for a post-training selfie with their rackets casually resting on their shoulders. No, no, no. This was different. The picture showed the two of them strolling along serene beach at sunset, cue the romantic movie soundtrack, deep in conversation, with Carlos casually tossing a tennis ball at her, looking all playful and flirty. The internet, as you can imagine, went absolutely bats-hit crazy. The tabloids wasted no time in pumping out headline after headline, each one more dramatic than the last. Fans turned into full-time detectives, scanning their social media profiles for any hint of interaction. And while Emma kept completely quiet, Carlos, bless his soul, decided to finally address the chaos during a press conference after a tournament in Melbourne. "It's funny how people jump to conclusions," he started, flashing that signature smirk as the cameras clicked like 1,000 machine guns. "Emma and I have been friends for a while now. Tennis is a small world, you know? We share a lot of things in common." And then he paused. Oh boy, he paused. As if he was about to drop some big revelation. You could hear the reporters' brains collectively short-circuiting. There's more to the story than people think. Boom. Just like that, the press room exploded. Journalists shouting over each other, everyone desperate to squeeze more information out of him. Carlos just sighed, ran a hand through his hair like he was about to deliver a Shakespearean monologue, and finally decided to confront the damn elephant in the room. "Yes, we've spent time together outside of tournaments," he admitted. "Emma is an incredible person, not just as a player, but as someone who truly understands the pressures we face every single day. That kind of connection? It's rare." His words were measured, sure, but there was an undeniable warmth in his voice that only added fuel to the fire. At this point, people needed a full timeline of events. When did this whole thing start? How deep does it go? According to Carlos, their first real conversation happened during the US Open the year before. Both had been eliminated earlier than expected, ouch, and they ended up crossing paths at a players' lounge event. What started as a casual chat about their favorite tennis memories somehow turned into a 2-hour conversation about everything, from their childhoods to their biggest dreams beyond tennis. "We just clicked," Carlos admitted during the interview. "It wasn't about fame, it wasn't about competition. It was just refreshing." But things took a turn for the spicy when the duo was spotted attending a private gala in Monaco. Now, sure, two world-class athletes showing up at the same fancy event? No big deal. But then came the paparazzi shots. Emma, holding onto Carlos's arm, both of them laughing like they were sharing some hilarious inside joke as they left the venue in the early hours of the morning. Well, that was all people needed. The internet went into meltdown mode. When Emma finally decided to break her silence, she did it in a casual Instagram Q&A. Someone straight up asked her, "What's going on with you and Carlos?" Her response? "It's not what it looks like. Carlos and I are just really good friends. The media loves to make something out of nothing." But let's be honest, those photos told a very different story. At this point, fans started analyzing every tiny interaction between them, both on and off the court. The way Carlos always seemed to be in the stands whenever Emma was playing. The low-key emotional Instagram caption he wrote about their training sessions. The fact that every time they were seen together, they looked like they were having the time of their lives. So, is this just an incredibly wholesome friendship between two tennis stars? Or is there something more? Either way, one thing's for sure, the world isn't taking its eyes off these two anytime soon. The evidence was piling up like a tennis ball machine gone rogue. But the real game changer? A bombshell video that hit the internet like a goddamn wildfire. Some anonymous, possibly wine-drunk source had leaked footage of the duo, Carlos Alcaraz and Emma Raducanu, on a very intimate-looking vineyard tour in Spain. And I'm not talking about some stiff, let's learn about tannins kind of wine tasting. Oh no. These two were laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, chatting like they were the only people on the planet. And then came the moment. Carlos, ever the playful bastard, was caught on camera feeding Emma grapes like he was some sort of Roman emperor, and she was his goddamn queen. Cue the fucking internet meltdown. Tennis forums turned into detective agencies, memes flooded Twitter like a tsunami, and fans went all in with their shipping. Hashtag #CarEmma was trending before you could even say Grand Slam. Carlos, being no stranger to the rumor mill, eventually realized he had to tackle the speculation head-on. And so, in an exclusive interview with a top sports magazine, he finally opened up. Emma is someone I care about deeply, he confessed, his usual grin giving way to something a little more serious. But being in the spotlight makes everything 10 times harder. People don't see the sacrifices we make, the endless traveling, the constant pressure, the lack of privacy. It's not easy to build something real when every single move you make is being dissected like a crime scene. And with that, the world collectively gasped. Carlos went on to reveal that they had been there for each other during some of the roughest moments of their careers. When Emma struggled with injuries and the ridiculous expectations that came after her Grand Slam win, Carlos was one of the few who reached out, offering encouragement without the fake PR bullshit. Likewise, when Carlos faced setbacks on the ATP Tour, Emma had been a constant source of support. She gets it, he said simply. And that means a lot. But while he spoke openly about their connection, he remained deliberately vague about whether they were actually dating. And guess what? That only made people talk more. Some fans were convinced they were keeping their romance under wraps to avoid media scrutiny. Others argued that they were just ridiculously close friends caught in a whirlwind of gossip. Emma, on the other hand, played it cool. In a brief interview after a tournament in Singapore, she was asked about the rumors and simply laughed. "Carlos and I have a great friendship," she said casually. "But honestly, I think people should focus more on our tennis than our personal lives." Nice try, Emma. But the world wasn't buying it. In fact, the fascination around them only grew stronger. Sponsors, being the sneaky capitalists they are, jumped on the hype faster than a ball boy at Wimbledon. Suddenly, brands were offering them joint sponsorship deals, heavily implying a romantic angle. One of the more blatant marketing moves? A luxury watch commercial where Carlos and Emma playfully teased each other about time being the most valuable thing they had. Cute, right? But behind the scenes, the pressure was mounting. Balancing their careers, their alleged whatever the fuck it was relationship, and the insane public interest was becoming a challenge. At another press conference, Carlos was finally pushed to his limit. With a deep breath, he looked straight at the reporters and said, "Whatever Emma and I are to each other, that's between us. And that's exactly how we want to keep it." Mic drop. There was no official confirmation. No grand declaration of love. No clear definition of what the hell was actually going on. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point. In a world obsessed with labels, with demanding answers, with trying to fit relationships into neat little boxes, Carlos and Emma had decided to let their bond evolve naturally, away from the blinding spotlight. But even as the media frenzy gradually started to die down, one thing remained crystal clear. Whatever they were, best friends, confidants, or something more, Carlos Alcaraz and Emma Raducanu had a connection that went beyond tennis. And that was enough to keep people hooked. Not just fans, but their fellow players as well. Behind closed doors, the real tennis gossip mill was buzzing. Teammates, coaches, even agents, everyone had their own theory about the duo. For some, it was a harmless distraction. For others, it stirred up feelings of envy or intrigue. Everyone's talking about you too. Stefanos Tsitsipas once teased Carlos in the locker room. His tone was playful, but his curiosity was very, very real. Carlos just smirked, tying his shoelaces like the unbothered king he was. But that little grin? Yeah, it didn't go unnoticed. Meanwhile, Emma wasn't exactly dodging questions either. During a WTA practice session, a fellow player straight up asked her, "What's the deal with you and Carlos? Are you guys the next power couple of tennis?" Emma snorted, shaking her head. "We're just really good friends," she said. "People read way too much into things." Sure, Emma. But no matter how many times they denied it, their actions screamed louder than their words. The way Carlos watched Emma's matches from the stands? That wasn't just friendly support, that was intense. He had the same laser focus as a damn coach. And Emma? She wasn't much better. Her fists clenched whenever Carlos won a crucial point. The visible relief on her face whenever he scraped through a tiebreaker? Hard to ignore. For those lucky enough to witness their private moments, the chemistry was undeniable. Take the Paris charity event, for example. They were paired up for a mixed doubles exhibition match, and while most players took it as a casual game, Carlos and Emma, they turned it into their own personal rom-com. Between points, they exchanged way too many inside jokes. Their laughter was so contagious that even the audience couldn't help but chuckle. At one point, Emma completely whiffed a shot, sending the ball straight into the net. She dropped to her knees in fake despair, dramatically throwing her arms up. "You're killing me, Emma!" Carlos yelled, hands on his head. The crowd lost it. And so did the event organizers, who immediately started brainstorming ways to market the hell out of their undeniable chemistry. Because, at the end of the day, whether they liked it or not, Carlos Alcaraz and Emma Raducanu were the story everyone wanted to believe in. And whether they were tennis's next golden couple or just two incredibly close friends, the world wasn't looking away anytime soon. You two have a kind of magic that people just can't look away from. That was what someone, probably a fellow player who'd seen too much, had whispered when they thought nobody was listening. But behind closed doors, away from the flashing cameras and relentless gossip, their interactions were even more telling. At the elite training academy in France, Carlos and Emma were often the last ones standing long after everyone else had packed up for the day. And they weren't always practicing. Sometimes, they'd just sit on the edge of the court, rackets abandoned beside them, lost in conversations that had nothing to do with tennis. Childhood memories. Fears about the future. The kind of deep shit you only tell someone who actually gets it. One evening, under the fading light, Emma had leaned back on her hands and sighed. "Do you ever feel like this life isn't really yours?" Her voice was quiet, laced with something dangerously close to vulnerability. Carlos, who had been tossing a tennis ball up and catching it absent-mindedly, snatched it mid-air and turned to look at her. "All the damn time," he admitted. "But then I remember why I started. For me, it's not just about winning. It's about moments like this." And that was when it hit them. They weren't just Carlos Alcaraz and Emma Raducanu, tennis superstars, global sensations, media darlings. They were just two young people, trying to make sense of a world that often felt way too big, loud, and exhausting. But that bond, that rare, unfiltered, no bullshit connection, it didn't come without its challenges. Because let's be real, being a pro athlete was one thing. Being a pro athlete while the entire world was obsessed with your relationship status? That was a whole different level of hell. Carlos, with his natural extroverted charm, handled the attention with a mix of humor and that cheeky grin that made people forgive him for pretty much anything. Emma, though. Emma wasn't built for this kind of invasive bullshit. She hated the relentless speculation, the stupid rumors, the never-ending parade of reporters trying to pry open something that wasn't theirs to dissect. And one night, as they debated whether they should just rip the damn Band-Aid off and make some kind of public statement, she snapped. Why the hell can't they just leave us alone? She was pacing the room, hands clenched into fists, her frustration radiating off her like a goddamn heat wave. Carlos, leaning casually against the doorway with his arms crossed, just watched her for a moment. Then, in a voice softer than she expected, he finally spoke. Because they see something real. And real things make people curious. Emma froze mid-step. His words hung in the air between them, crackling with something unspoken. She swallowed. Do you think it's worth it? She asked, quieter now. Carlos pushed off the doorway and stepped toward her, his gaze steady, unwavering. I think anything with you is worth it. And that was it. Their relationship, whatever the hell it actually was, remained a puzzle to the outside world. But to them, it was crystal fucking clear. Whether it was the inside jokes, the lingering glances, or the late-night soul-bearing talks about life, they had found something in each other that no amount of media speculation could ever take away.